Patrick Radden Keefe, Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland. And Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland, Patrick Radden Keefe dives into the gripping and complex tale of Jean McConville, an ordinary Northern Irish woman who disappeared without a trace in December 1972. Readers will be taken on a journey through the deeply harrowing conflict known as the Troubles, which began in the late 1960s as Catholic and Protestant neighbors fought for political power and control over Northern Ireland. By sharing stories of key players such as Gerry Adams, Dolores, and Marion Price, Keefe highlights the violence and desperation that led to the kidnapping and eventual murder of McConville. Follow along as the story of McConville's disappearance finally comes to light, revealing a tangled web of culpability and a shocking cover-up.
The Troubles and the Disappearance of Jean McConville. In Northern Ireland's Troubles, widespread discrimination against Catholics pushed many, including young ones, to violence. Jean McConville was one of the countless victims of this conflict. Having lost her husband and struggling to raise her 10 children on her own, Jean was taken from her home by a group of people and made to disappear without a trace. Politics and violence impacted the lives of people like Jean and her family, leaving deep scars in Northern Irish history. The origins of the IRA. In the Troubles of the late 1960s, Gerry Adams and sisters Dolores and Marion Price joined the revolutionary organization known as the IRA, which aimed to unite Ireland by compelling the British government to give up Northern Ireland. Despite the proud tradition of Republican violence in Northern Ireland, Adams stood out for his strategic and intellectual approach, ultimately becoming one of the most important decision-makers in the group. The Price sisters were part of an infamous bombing campaign, inspired by their family's history of self-sacrifice for the Republican cause. The IRA's use of car bombs became their signature in the fight to force the British out of Ireland. Bloody Friday and the Price sisters' revenge. During the Troubles, the IRA used car bombs to devastating effect. On Bloody Friday, nearly 20 bombs were detonated around Belfast, killing 9 people and injuring 130 others. While the IRA claimed they only intended to target infrastructure, the attack drew international condemnation. Seeking to take the fight to the British mainland, Dolores and Marion Price drove car bombs to prominent British institutions, injuring 250 people. Though caught, the Price sisters would become embroiled in a high-profile battle of wills with the British government. This book highlights the lethal impact of car bombs during the Troubles and the lengths to which individuals were willing to go in the name of their cause. Fighting for justice. After being arrested for the London bombing campaign, Marion and Dolores Price demanded to be transferred back to a prison in Northern Ireland. When their request was ignored, they resorted to going on a hunger strike, which resulted in the controversial practice of force-feeding by the British government. The sisters resisted this for months until the doctors recommended stopping it due to the harm it was causing them. This practice had also been used against female suffragettes in English prisons many decades before, causing outrage among British feminists. Eventually, the British government sent the sisters back to Northern Ireland to finish out their sentences. The tragic fate of Jean McConville. Jean McConville, a widowed mother of 10, was executed by the IRA after being suspected of informing the British Army. Her body was then concealed to avoid public backlash. Through interviews with prominent IRA members, including Dolores Price and Brendan Hughes, the truth behind Jean's disappearance was unraveled. Her remains were discovered in 2003, after her children spent years searching for answers. The Cost of Peace, Gerry Adams and Jean McConville's murder. Gerry Adams, leader of the political wing of the IRA, signed the Good Friday Agreement, which meant the permanent cessation of violence by the IRA. However, the family of Jean McConville campaigned for him to be brought to justice, and many IRA fighters reviled him for agreeing to a ceasefire without achieving their goal of a united Ireland. Although Adams was instrumental in bringing peace to Northern Ireland, his involvement in the peace process came at the cost of justice for IRA victims like Jean McConville.
As a say nothing comes to an end, the truth behind McConville's disappearance has been revealed, a victim of the dark and brutal conflict in Northern Ireland. As Gerry Adams, the alleged orchestrator behind her murder, signed the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, many applauded him as a visionary peacemaker. However, the legacy of the Troubles and the IRA leaves an indelible stain on the lives of those who suffered through the violence, with the McConville family never receiving justice for Jean's death. Questions remain about justice sacrificed in the name of peace, and whether Gerry Adams ever truly faced the consequences for his actions. Patrick Radden Keefe's Say Nothing is a poignant reminder of how history often leaves behind hidden stories and lingering wounds that demand our attention and understanding.